podcast episode is unlike anything I've ever done. So let me set it up for you. You're about to listen to a voice memo that I sent my client, Katie. So Katie Lovett, she is the founder and owner of a company called Wellness with Katie. And she is a private client of mine. If you want to follow her on Instagram, she is Katie Lovett, two T's, Wellness. Okay, so Katie Lovett Wellness. Anyway, she helps moms stop feeling exhausted, like those that are like sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. You know what I'm saying? So she and I were going back and forth. Like I said, she's a private client. And as a private client, she gets to voice memo me anytime she's feeling like she has a question, she wants to celebrate a win. And in this particular voice memo, which I'm not going to share her version, but I'm going to share with you my answer. She was talking about feeling all over the place as a new business owner. You know, she's a couple months into working with me. And, before we were coaching together, she would often say she'd go to a family outing and somebody would ask her about her business and she wouldn't really know how to describe it. And she now knows exactly how to describe it, right? Because of coaching. And what's interesting is as she's gaining more of a following on social media, people are engaging with her more, and her content is hysterical and it's so relatable. So I really encourage you to check it out. But behind the scenes, there's a little pressure that she's feeling. I want to help more people. I want to have more clients. I've done mock clients. I have done this coaching certification. I am ready to coach moms who are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, who want to have more energy, who want to sleep better, etc. And in this message, she says, I'm just feeling like all over the place. There was a combination of perfectionism coming up for her, imposter syndrome, right? How many of you can relate to having imposter syndrome as you have been growing your business? I'm raising my hand. I definitely have. So I got Katie's permission to share with you my response to her. So remember, going into this voice memo, she just leaves me one saying, what the heck? I'm wanting more clients. Like, I'm feeling all over the place. I'm feeling like I have imposter syndrome. I don't know if this is my perfectionism taking over, talking a lot about like social media posts and putting herself out there and things like that. So I think why it was so important for me to share my response to her is because literally every single client I have ever had I'm talking business coaching to relationship coaching to dating coaching, like, we have talked about this very topic of where does perfectionism come from? Where does ADD or ADHD come from? How does that relate into imposter syndrome? And it deserved its chance on the podcast for you to listen to it. It is so important that you listen to this episode intently. I would encourage you to listen again. It's only 13 minutes long, and share it with somebody who you think feels a little all over the place all the time, or says, oh my God, I got ADHD, or oh my God, I'm such a perfectionist, and is feeling overwhelmed. Because I think it's going to shed a lot of light and release a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. So here we go into the episode. So you mentioned something that's really important earlier, and in this message, you said, God, I feel like I have ADD or ADHD, and then you just talked about perfectionism. So the two are closely linked, and essentially my experience is that they come from growing up with dysfunction, and dysfunction can mean many things, Katie, to different people. Okay, it could be a parent that worked a lot and wasn't around. It could be that there was a death at a young age. It could be a parent that was quite critical, or suffered from some type of addiction, right? There could be gossip or criticism, or, you say one thing to a parent and it doesn't say safe, a parent who tried to parentify you, meaning that you had to parent the parent. So there's all different types. And as a result of how we grow up, we form qualities and characteristics, and they, for lack of a better word, are a survival mechanism, not because we're trying to stay alive, but just more because we're trying to keep things copacetic and calm within our family. And so as a result of that, we develop ADHD and ADD, which is a hard time focusing because, we'd be focusing on something and then we'd hear the car drive up, and, depending on how the parent shut the door a certain way, we could hear the sound, or we could hear the, oh, dad's angry, or, you kind of like walking on eggshells feeling. That's one example. It could be many, by the way, Katie. So the reality is that we form these characteristics of having a hard time paying attention, and we feel all over the place. And it's because we're often caught between the thing we're focusing on and monitoring our surroundings, like the hypervigilance around, okay, all the other things that I need to do, or the people in my life, right? And then the perfectionism kicks in, because that usually comes, again, hand in hand with, oh my God, I'm kind of all over the place. I need to do this perfectly, and I need to do this right. And overthinking it and having a very hard time even getting the task completed, because we want to do it so right. And perfectionism can also come from the, again, critical parent of, my grandparents were like that with myself. They were like that with my aunts and uncles, which was like, you had to get all A's. If you got a B, you weren't good enough, that sort of stuff. But there's some qualities and characteristics. I don't know that the perfectionism, it did. It dropped on Thursday, so it should be up. But I talked about these like 4 qualities and characteristics. One of them being that we are like quite critical of ourselves. And the only way I've noticed to be able to work through perfectionism and really put it down is saying to myself, if I do this imperfectly, people are really going to love it. And how did I come to that conclusion? I noticed that there was a podcast that I used to listen to all the time, and she had digital courses, and she was in her car, and she had the lighting was shit, and she was recording off her phone as opposed to a mic. And I just noticed, like, she was just showing up in the midst of her living as opposed to stopping what she's doing to work. And that's when I was like, wait, that's the kind of person, business owner, coach I want to be. I want to just live my life, and then on top of it, be able to have a great podcast, which is why you've probably noticed, like, I got rid, or you may not have, but got rid of, there's just music at the beginning of the podcast and at the end. There's no intro, outro. I am going to put one back, but it's why I got rid of it. It's why I don't record video when I do Zoom, do the podcast. There's certain things that I'm like, it's just not worth it to me to have to show up and be pretty and have makeup on just to get a podcast done. Like, I'm not going to do it. So I wonder if we could start to adapt some of those qualities and characteristics. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot riding on this for you, right? Because you've put pressure on yourself. Now, as somebody who's making money, I can tell you that in the times where I wasn't making money, by the way, I wasn't making money for the good first half of this year, PS, until like you and like 7 other clients came in at the same time, was I able to get back into the green. And that's business, right? It ebbs and it flows. And, I found myself being like, holy shit, like, what is going on? And am I going to have to close my doors? And what's interesting is that, it's a lot easier for me to say to you, Katie, the pressure is off when you're making money. Right. So now that I'm making well over, like 10 grand a month, and everything's being paid for, and I'm able to kind of take care of not just my basic needs, but more than that. And then to have another 3 clients just sign up for last year, I now am like, cool, okay, I'm going to open up another group. And it's very like, if no one signs up, no big deal. I think people, specifically business owners, forget to mention that when you are making money, it takes the pressure off. Because now if a client signs up, great. If a client doesn't, no big deal. And it's just sort of like laissez-faire, right? The reality is that you have your basic needs met. Your husband you've talked to him, you've had a conversation. He's taking care of your basic needs for this period of time so that you can get the business up and running, right? And we have no idea if this thing is going to take off and go a million miles an hour, or if it's going to be a slow, steady progress, or not at all. Right? We don't know that. Chances are it's not going to be not at all, though, because I'm even looking at your engagement and it's fucking insane. So it tells me that there is something there and it's brewing. You just have to keep doing this inner work. You have to keep coming here to me and saying, I'm feeling imposter syndrome. I feel the perfectionism. Like, Katie, keep bringing it here, because when you do, it lessens every single time. See, these are addictions. These are codependency, people pleasing, imposter syndrome, perfectionism. They are behaviors that we do again and again and again because we think it's going to create the result we want. But ultimately, like any addiction, it hurts us. And if we're not careful, it can hurt other people, right? Because if you're wound up like a top, it can impact your kids and your husband and things like that. So something that we want to just be mindful of is that the antidote to letting go of an addiction is to not let shame and guilt be in the same petri dish. How do you do that? You don't isolate them. You literally do not isolate yourself. You use your voice. And that's why I'm loving that you Voxer as opposed to texting, because you're actually using your voice in the voice memo, which, as you know, regulates your nervous system. It brings you out of fight or flight because that's what you were in earlier, right? So you're just going to keep doing that. So what I want to encourage you, and you may remember this from our first call, you may not, so I'll just bring it back here for a second. Right now in business, we're creating codependency, but we're doing it in a healthy way, right? Like you're running things by me, you're getting my opinion on things, you're telling me how you feel when you are experiencing overwhelm, you're sharing that. And so I'm helping you co-regulate, right? Now, is that going to be like this forever? No. My goal and my purpose as your coach is to show you how to actually no longer do that. And so we're going to do it slowly. That's why I always have people start with 6 months. And I say to you, and I said this to you, but plan on being here a year. Because what you may not realize is that it's going to take time. You went from being a hyper independent business owner, meaning you did everything on your own. You were just flying by the seat of your pants, to then saying, okay, the way that I'm doing this like isn't working. So let me try something different. I'm going to hire a coach. I'm going to ask for help. And so when we ask for help, what ends up happening is we end up going into codependency. But in this case, we're doing it in a really beautiful way, a really healthy way where there's good boundaries and there's like intention. And if I can't show up for you, I let you know, you do the same, right? Things like that. But then what you're going to see as we get, and it's why I actually encouraged you to say, let me finish the thought. What you're going to see is we're going to start to move into a balance of codependent, and it's actually interdependent is what it's called. It's a balance of you being you, me being me still being there, but you're going to start to do things a little bit more on your own. A perfect example of that is I asked you to respond back to me as if I was the gym owner. So then that way I could see your style of writing, how you were thinking, what was coming up for you. I can edit it back, ask you your opinion. Katie, is this how you would say it? Whatnot. And then from there, you coming back with either another set of edits or going, wow, shit, that feels really great. We take a little breath, we send it on its way, we exhale again, we move on to the next task or whatever that task, be it home or business may be. So what's going to happen is we move from hyper-independence to codependency to interdependence, and then you get to choose as it gets closer to that 6 months. Do I love this interdependence? Do I love me being me and having the support of Katie, and I love being in her energy? Or do I feel like I want to try this on my own without any help? Or maybe it's somebody else who helps, right? Depending on what you have going on. And then you get to figure that out. And I always make sure to just set you up for success, because no matter where you go, whether we stay together or not, I want you to be able to have the tools in your toolkit to always lean back on, which is why I like knowing what's going on with your kids. I like knowing what's going on with your husband. How are you feeling personally outside of the business? When I can understand the family dynamics and I can understand how you think and feel, etc., outside of business as well as in business, it helps me to coach you better, because as you may know, what's going on in life is going to impact business and vice versa, right? So that's why you're welcome to bring anything and everything here to Voxer and to our calls. And then two, doing what you're doing, which is sharing like exactly how you're feeling as it relates to these moments. And last thing I'll say about this is almost every single client who is starting to get business, meaning they're not, sold out, like keep in mind, more sold out, but she also wasn't sold out when she first started coaching with me, right? So there's a little bit of a difference there, but like you see people like Amora, she's not really worried about what she's posting online or how long it takes her, but she did complain the other day, oh my God, I did this post and it almost didn't work, and I'm so annoyed, and I find that the pressure of getting a post right comes with people who are trying to get more clients, as opposed to those who have enough clients, they're sort of like, whatever, if I post, I post. If I fuck it up, no big deal. Keep in mind, you're getting clients. That's the phase you're in. So there is a little extra pressure that you're putting on yourself. I do want to make sure that the cover slide's right? I want to make sure the alignment is right. I want to make sure that they can read what's on the screen. So you're pausing intentionally to have me double check the work. So A, you can learn, but B, so it becomes like no big deal. And that way, when you are getting clients from these posts, and I feel so confident, Katie, I wouldn't take you on as a client if I didn't feel A, I could help you, or B, that you had something that was really worth, putting out there to the world and saying, okay, like somebody's going to buy. Somebody's going to buy. It's coming quickly. And my feeling is, and I always say this, that this is the calm before the storm. Like I had to go through almost 9 months of having 2 clients to then going to 9 clients and prepare myself emotionally so that I could take breaks, that I could take naps, that I could make sure my body was in a good spot, that my energy, I knew how to protect it. That's what we're going through right now. Like right now, you're going through the how do I stay calm, cool, and collective when there is no clients? Because when you get clients, you still have to stay calm, cool, and collected. So we're just stretching that muscle right now. And that's why it also feels so uncomfortable. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections on this. And then we can, we'll slowly just continue to put a plan in place and we'll do it as it comes. So you're just going to continue doing what you're doing. You're doing it right. You're continuing to post. You're reaching out to me. You're asking for advice. You are continuing to run into situations of, okay, how else could I get clients? Like you're coming from a place not of desperation, but curiosity. And so as you do that, continue to just bring it forward and we will take it step by step. Okay, how cool was that episode? I'm gonna toot my own horn. Toot toot. I had to stop in my tracks the moment I left it for Katie, ask her permission if I could share it on the podcast, and then forward it to my assistant to make it a podcast. I was like, I just feel like this is the one repetitive thing that I say again and again and again and again to clients. And I know for me that I was able to release a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of sadness for being certain ways or thinking different thoughts. And so, as I asked you earlier, please share this with somebody who you know can really relate to feeling overwhelmed, to feeling all over the place, whether they have a business or not. I think that knowledge that I shared can be applicable to anybody, no matter where you are in life. If you could also, please take a moment to stop what you're doing and hit the review button. Review that episode. Let the people know on podcasts, whether that's Spotify or iTunes, that you liked it. Right now, we only have 5 reviews on our podcast. That's not enough to be able to push it out to more people. So as I come to you every week, free, offering this advice and feedback and coaching to you, the one thing I ask is, aside from sharing it with somebody else, could you please be so kind as to take time to review it, even if you pop a little 5 stars on there. Thank you so much, and health and happiness, and I'll see you in the next episode.